Hey folks, with us today, Matthew Reid, founder of PriceWell. Matt, super happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome, cool. Let's dive right in. So what problem does PriceWell solve for its customers?
So PriceWell is for non-technical founders to help them collect subscription payments for their application, so their SaaS application. And for non-technical founders, mainly using Bubble, the no-code app builder, although we support everything, every kind of app builders. And it's kind of a journey that led us towards focusing on Bubble.
Interesting, yeah, because the typical mix is like a tech co-founder and the founder, like the one person coding, the other person doing the marketing. So are those like really people with like a marketing or a PM background doing like the full thing themselves with Bubble, like building like actual SaaS applications or?
Yeah, exactly. So our current sort of best customers right now are people who are like PMs or they've worked in the industry and they have an idea for an application. Lots of apps based on like OpenAI, like ChatGPT stuff. Loads of those because I have like onboarding calls with people and I hear lots of OpenAI stuff. So it's lots of people with non-technical background, and they found Bubble as a really good way to get like an MVP or even like a full working application up and running. And implementing Stripe is a technical challenge for these people. So that's where PriceWell comes in and make it super easy.
Yeah. I mean, implementing pricing always sounds super easy, even though it's quite hard to build all that stuff. So did your like when you started that, did you have people building no-code tools or like using no-code to build SaaS in mind from the get-go, or did you kind of stumble into that niche or target customer?
Yeah, exactly. We stumbled into it. So it was originally I had the idea after I sold like for a small exit another SaaS that I was working on. I sold it, and after that realized that basically I spent all my time working on the website and the implementing Stripe and all of these things that were nothing to do with building the application. So I had the idea to help founders with some of these things. And I focused on pricing because I'm also kind of an expert at that. It was originally aimed at technical founders, like developers like myself. And I realized developers actually don't care about paying for something. They'd rather spend a week of their own time to implement Stripe. So slowly kind of moved towards, I found the no-code space and we moved kind of in that direction and aiming at Webflow and WordPress, but eventually found Bubble, which seems to be kind of a sweet spot of just the right type of people who are not technical and want to get something done quickly.
Interesting. So just get an overview of like the current scale. Could you just give us a rough estimate of either MRR, if you're open to share, or just like numbers of customers you serve right now?
Yeah, number of customers is over 30 customers, over $500 MRR currently. So, but we're over 2 years old, and it only started ramping up very recently as we kind of hit the niche, because we launched on Product Hunt early this year with a Bubble plugin, which wasn't the original. It wasn't the original product, but the plugin then really helped us grow the MRR.
Interesting. So, I mean, just going back to the super early days. So you said you had a small exit. Were you able to take like a small break from work and focused fully on PriceWell, or did you build a nights and weekends? Like, give us a bit of like the builder or maker story of it.
Yeah. So it's around the time of COVID that I went down to 4 days a week on my day job just through COVID, and I've stayed working 4 days a week. And I spent this one day on working on my idea on PriceWell, and evenings and weekends too. And so I've kept my job almost full-time job throughout. and managed to grow the business and still work on it and still do support while also working another job.
Yeah. Let's maybe put a pin in that, because I guess it's super interesting for a lot of people, like how to get started in the early days, especially us, like the indie hackers crowd.
Yeah.
So was it more of a coincidence that you had like the ability to go like 4 times, like for a 4-day work week, or did you like not push, but like proactively ask for it? Because I think like, at least in my LinkedIn feed, it's like a ton of things about more companies doing like the 4-day work week, which I feel like could be amazing for indie hackers. So how did you manage to do that? And is it as good as it sounds from the outside?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's definitely as good as it sounds. 4 days. If anyone, I'd recommend anyone work 4 days instead of 5 days if you can. Just gives you so much more headspace to be able to work on other projects. And I absolutely get as much done in 4 days as I ever did in 5 for my day job. And it was, yeah, like I work for a company it's also an indie business, or it's a multi-million-dollar indie business, but it doesn't have VC funding, and it's very easy to be able to take 4 days. A lot of my coworkers were, and obviously living in Germany, it's like the legal right to be able to do 4 days if you want to. So just take 80% of the salary and work 80% of the time. And so that was like a great option for really reducing the risk, because I'm a risk-averse person. So I don't want to, I have family as well, 2 children. So I don't want to quit my job and then start from nothing on a business. So it was a super easy way to reduce the risk and but still get to work on my own business.
This episode is brought to you by ReactSquad.io, the boutique React agency for SaaS startups. If your front-end team is overwhelmed and you need more hands on deck, go to ReactSquad.io and get a React.js developer embedded in your team in less than 7 days. How do you think about the whole taking VC, staying indie, maybe not discussion, but just the decision for yourself? Because in the end, you're very experienced, so you could try to raise money if you wanted to. So
yeah,
how come you chose the indie road?
I guess it comes from, so I've worked for both sides. So I've worked for VC-backed companies, and my current day job is not VC-backed. And I've seen the lack of pressure that you get from that, because there's no pressure to grow the company massively, to go from 1 million to 5 million to 100 million over a few years, which we had at previous VC-backed companies I worked for. And so, I really like that style, and just to be able to have I guess they call it lifestyle business, where it funds a business that funds my family lifestyle without, I don't need $100 million business, because just need to be able to, afford to pay for my family and keep the business running. So that's where I think indie hackers or indie businesses are really good. If you don't want to change the world, like PriceWell it's not something that's I'm not sending rockets to space. So I think it's perfect to make a lifestyle business from.
Absolutely. And I mean, jumping back to today, getting the first couple of users or couple dozens for you and the first couple of hundreds in MRR is like a very tough milestones for a lot of people to hit, because I think we all have experienced building something and either not quite putting it out there, or putting it out there and then moving on to the next thing before we push through that. What did you do to like get over the hump, to have like go from like 0 paying customers to the first 10 paying customers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I read a lot more books about this since the last time I launched a SaaS, which that was very much the first case where I launched it and no one came, and had to post on Twitter a lot about it, and eventually found one or two customers for that previous SaaS, but when I sold it, it basically had zero revenue, and I sold the code to someone else who likes the idea. But this time I tried to do it slightly differently, and it was very hard to build an MVP of something that's on top of Stripe. I still had to do quite a bit of code, but I had a landing page before the coding, collecting some email signups, but the original idea isn't what the final sort of the current version is. So it's been listening to lots of feedback, speaking to lots of people on calls. I end up doing onboarding calls with almost everyone, especially everyone who becomes a paying customer. Doing onboarding calls with them, and that just provides lots of feedback for changing the application in a way that works for everyone and doesn't it's make sure we're going in the right direction to fit the market. We're still so we get the product market fit.
Yeah,
we're still on that
just
road.
Super tactical. Did you, I don't know, like DM people on LinkedIn or like in mail them or whatever it's called in LinkedIn, or how did you actually like get those first calls? Because in the end, like having a landing page up is kind of like the easy part. The hard part is like getting people on the landing page. So is there anything specific that would like worked well for you that people could maybe also incorporate when they are like very early?
Yeah, what worked for us was finding people talking about the problem that we solve on Reddit, IndieHackers, Twitter, all these social networks, and then joining the conversation, trying to be helpful because I know a lot about Stripe, so I can also solve problems with Stripe, but also then recommend my solution. So it helped find the problems that people have, because if the same question keeps coming up, then that's an issue. And then we're also just joining in the conversation there and talking about PriceWell, and that's how we got the first few users. And those people didn't become like long-term customers because pricing is very tricky. Everyone wants something slightly different, and so we had things that one person wanted, and I would rush to build it because I'm a developer and I love that, and then no one else needed that feature, and it was confusing. And that person cancelled a month later, so they paid us like $10 or something as the early pricing. So it was a long road to get to where we are now.
Yeah. And then now that you learned a lot, especially learned like who your target customer is with like the Bubble users, basically, what's your plan going forward? I mean, like launching the Bubble integration sounds super smart, basically as integration marketing. But like, what's your game plan to getting like, I don't know, like from 500 to 1,000 or 2,000 MRR?
Yeah, we still need to it doesn't feel like we quite have product market fit yet. I still have to do a lot of manual onboarding and calls. So to get to something that's more self-serve, and then go for expanding to other no-code tools, but also other payment tools, other payment providers. So every Paddle or Lemon Squeezy also have the same issues that implementing Stripe has. So if we aim to be the platform that lets you integrate any of these payment providers really easily with no-code tools.
Makes sense. And then like, how do you manage this, like the balance of still working on the product? Because as you said, like you don't have product market fit. You can't just say, hey, the product is as it is and I never have to do anything on it, versus like doing marketing, getting new use. Like, how do you manage like the balance of that?
I keep a Trello board. I don't have a public roadmap because things change so often. So we keep a Trello board of ideas and things that people had that came up through support. And if something comes up multiple times, then that becomes something that I would build. But apart from that, we just try and market what we have currently. And we get these questions so often on an onboarding, and we know it's going well when someone asks a question, and I can say, yes, we have a feature for that. You just enable this flag. And when we get to the point where every single call is like that, then I think we're in a good position.
Makes sense. So you basically say you kind of go with the attitude of doing marketing and distribution first, and then taking the feedback, and only if the feedback is like super obvious and there's like a big pressure or pain point, then you go build it. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, correct. And I also try and do the smallest things. And so if someone's asking for a paddle integration, I'm not afraid to say, no, we don't have that right now. Because I think there's a trap of going off and just building things just because I could build a paddle integration. Just because I could doesn't mean I should do that because one customer or one potential customer asked for it. So I only build things that are very small. If I can do it in a few hours, then I would build that feature. But otherwise, it goes on the backlog until enough people have requested it.
Yeah. Do you go by gut feeling, or do you have like a certain number where you say, if 10 people ask for it, I go build it?
It's really gut feeling at the moment. It's just me and my co-founder, and it's really gut feeling. So someone might catch me on a day where I'm feeling great and ready to code something, and if they catch me at the right time and ask me something that was, it's really nice for someone to ask something, and then a few hours later you already have the feature implemented, and you can go back to them and say, okay, yes, it's done. Just click here and it's done.
Yeah. And just talking about your co-founder, because you mentioned him, like, how do you split the work between the two of you? Is he a developer as well, or is he more like the marketing type?
Yeah, exactly. He's the marketing side, so I'm developer. We met on IndieHackers, and we split it. So I'm doing all the development work and customer support because that's very technical currently, and he's on the marketing side, so producing content, and also interacting through social media. So we have a very relaxed atmosphere, and we just have a Slack channel.
That's nice. I mean, it's like finding the right co-founder is always super hard. And like, you met him on IndieHacker, so you didn't know him like IRL, but like just met him online and then he became a co-founder. Like, tell us the story. That sounds super intriguing.
It was actually through another person I met on IndieHackers. So I just posted the idea. This is before I'd even created the landing page or
so like back in 2021 or like, where are we right now? Like super
exactly.
early.
Super early. I posted the idea. Like I couldn't sleep. It was like 4 a.m. and I posted this idea on IndieHackers. And like I can't stop thinking about this idea. Originally it was like Shopify for SaaS was my like idea. And then I slowly narrowed it down to like payments, just the payment part. But I met another guy on IndieHackers who was interested to help build that. And he introduced me to Spiros, who's like the co-founder. And we have never met in real life. He lives in Paris currently, and I live in Berlin. And we just have a weekly Zoom call and chat on Slack, and it's worked out so far.
That's amazing. I mean, how did you do anything for those who are either marketers or developers, like looking for this counterpart? Did you do anything specific to figure out from your perspective if he's like the right partner, or did it just click? Like, let's dig a bit into the details here.
Yeah, it just kind of clicked because there were things to do, and he was on the marketing side doing already off in Reddit in the early days. He was just in Reddit all the time on the comments, and I was just in the sort of the back end coding. So it just worked out, and I didn't do too much thinking about it.
Nice. So you basically just started working. Sorry.
It's a very unlikely story, I guess, and probably doesn't happen to everyone.
I mean, you hear tons of stories of like either a couple of good stories like yours, and then also tons of horror stories with co-founders. So you just like basically jumped right in, started working together, and saw everything's going perfect. And then also, again, like just for the people listening, if you would be able, if you would be open to share, how did you come to an agreement and then started working? Did you start working and then come to agreement? So just on the meta, I always try to go like super tactical and like in the day-to-day applicable things on the podcast, because like on like high level stuff, there's like tons of it out there. So if you would be open to share, that would be super interesting.
Yeah, we just started working together without, I think too many people they worry too much about lots of things when they're building a business right at the very start. And at the very start, all there is an idea, and the idea is worth nothing. And there's no code, there's no MRR, so there is no business. So we just worked and then came up with an agreement later down the line.
I think that's a very smart way to do it, because in the end, like if you have like long contract discussions, even before you know if you like work good together as a team, I think that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then just like looking like way ahead, like what's like the big vision? Because you mentioned like being Shopify for SaaS, which is like a major vision. Is that still the thing you want to achieve in like the next years or decade? Or like what's the big vision for PriceWell right now?
It's really focused on billing and on pricing, so that it's not really the Shopify for SaaS, and it's just being more just the easiest billing solution. And for no code is a big focus, just because it's there are other tools out there for technical people, but I think we really are the only tool for non-technical people.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think having the focus is great, especially if you go indie and don't raise like a big bag of money from VC. I think going narrow is basically the thing you need to do. And then do you think about sometimes, or do you discuss internally if you should do like only Bubble or like only Webflow or only WordPress? Or do you just say, hey, no code pricing tools is like narrow enough?
We have discussions back and forth about this, and we probably started too broad. So the tool works for anything, but in the end, what we're currently focused on is Bubble, and we discuss a lot how to handle that, because all our best customers come from Bubble, but we don't want to neglect the option for people who are using other tools. And we support a whole host of tools, and we have tutorials for different tools. But really, we have one focus at the moment, which is Bubble.
Makes sense. And then that's like the typical podcast question. But if you could do like one thing differently, is there a specific thing that like pops right to mind? Or do you think just like this, going step by step, is just the way it had to go in the end?
Yeah, I guess you probably have to make these mistakes. But with hindsight, if I went back again, I would go super niche and start like maybe the stair-step approach, like Rob Walling talks about. So build a plugin for some tool first that helps people with pricing, and then use that to find out the real like issues, and if there's something that could be a bigger SaaS application. Whereas I went the other way around and built a big application that works for everything first, and then eventually found a niche that does kind of work for us.
I think that's an amazing point to wrap up. So besides PriceWell.io, where can people find you on like the intranets?
Yeah, that's a weird question these days, because it used to be the answer was just Twitter, and then it's like, where else do you go? Like Blue Sky or Mastodon. But I'm on Twitter, Matthew_Reid, and I post, I just talk about building an indie business there.
Great. So everybody heard it. Go to Twitter and follow Matt. And then Matt, thanks a ton for taking the time today.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
If you like this episode, you will love our newsletter, The SaaS Operator by EarlyNote. Get actionable insights from SaaS veterans like Patrick Campbell, Christoph Jans, and Corey Haynes right into your inbox. A 5-minute read every Tuesday for free. Go to earlynote.com and subscribe for free.